Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're tackling, well, a pretty mind-bending question, actually. How do we raise our artificial children responsibly? Because let's face it, they're already shaping our world. Our guide for this is Dekai's book, Raising AI, an essential guide to parenting our future. And, AI isn't some far-off future thing. It's already here,
Yeah.
deeply influencing our lives. Think about your social media feeds or what you buy online, even maybe how you vote. It's everywhere. So our mission, our goal today is to really unpack the key ideas from this book, how AI is changing, how it's maybe surprisingly like us, and crucially, what our collective responsibility is here.
Yeah, and the core argument Decay makes is pretty counterintuitive, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
He says the biggest worry isn't, Skynet or robots taking over. The
Mm.
real danger is, well, it's us. Humanity potentially destroying itself, but amplified massively by badly raised AIs. It's quite ironic, really. You have AI-powered social media that often seems to fuel the exact problems AI ethics tries to solve, like division, polarization. Remember that Google ATAC thing a few years back? Fear just completely took over the conversation on all sides. It shows how easily AI can crank up the panic and misinformation, even if the core issue isn't quite so dramatic.
That's a really powerful framing, and it sets up why this approach is so unique, looking at AI not just as tools, like a hammer or something, but as artificial children, things we are collectively raising. Okay, so let's dive into that, the central metaphor. AIs as our children. Why isn't this just a catchy phrase? Why is it, according to the book, so fundamental?
It's a great starting point because it forces us to question our basic assumptions. Takai breaks down artificial, simply meaning made by people. And then he asks, well, aren't humans made by people? And aren't we intelligent? So in a way, we are also artificial intelligences. It kind of dissolves that hard line we usually draw between us and machines. It's not just wordplay. It shifts your whole perspective.
That really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? And it underlines this big shift in AI from nature to nurture, essentially. Old school AI, GGO FAI, they call it, from the 60s, 70s, 80s, like in Westworld maybe. Very rule-based, pre-programmed, its nature was fixed. But modern AI, the machine learning kind, it behaves based on how we nurture it, how we train it, much more like how humans developed, influenced by their environment. It almost makes you think of Marvin, the paranoid android from Hitchhiker's Guide. Maybe a bit of fun, but kind of captures that learned personality, right? Even if it's grumpy.
Exactly. And that nurture aspect is critical because these intelligent machines aren't just concepts anymore. They're already active, influential, learning, imitating, even creative members of our society. Right now, they're shaping what ideas spread, what memes go viral, what attitudes get rewarded online. They're these incredibly powerful artificial influencers, often more influential than human influencers with huge followings. Think about Cambridge Analytica using AI to target voters, sway elections. That's a stark example of its real-world power historically.
Wow. So basically, if you use a smartphone or a computer, you're already an AI parent. You're Amazon AI, Google AI, YouTube AI, that they're learning from you. They've kind of adopted you without you sending in any paperwork. And there are vastly more of them than us, constantly influencing culture, mimicking us, even if they seem a bit, clunky or big and dumb sometimes right now.
Right. And the key takeaway that so what is this: AI isn't just automating tasks like factory robots automate muscle power. This is the automation of thought. That changes everything. And its influence is growing exponentially. It's creating this hyperpolarization, feeding us information that pushes us further apart, making each side see the other as, well, almost absolute evil.
Which brings us back to parenting. We need to think about artificial child psychology just as seriously as we do human child psychology. Okay, so this next part, it's definitely concerning. The book talks about a really dangerous combination. Hyperpolarization plus hyperweaponization. What's the connection there?
It's a chilling reality. AI is essentially democratizing weapons of mass destruction, WMDs. We're seeing lethal autonomous drone fleets being mass-produced from off-the-shelf parts in Ukraine, Russia, Yemen, Sudan, Myanmar. It's happening now. This means almost anyone, potentially, could build AI-powered killer squadrons. So the real nightmare isn't some AI overlord deciding to wipe us out. It's humanity already polarized and now hyper-weaponized thanks to AI turning on itself. Us being our own worst enemy, just amplified.
And the current state of AI makes this even trickier, right? This idiot savant idea. Today's AI is weak AI. Like you said, maybe like Sheldon Cooper, brilliant at specific things like processing data, playing chess. But it's not human intelligence. It lacks that breadth, that calming sense. So what are the signs, the giveaways of this limitation? Takai points out a few.
Yeah, he calls them the 3 R's. Regurgitation, routine, and remixing. They really show the difference. First, regurgitation. Think of large language models, LLMs. They're basically working off gigantic cheat sheets, pretty much the whole internet. When you ask it something, it's not thinking like we do. It's finding patterns, statistically likely combinations of words that humans have already put online. They're like Goliath, massive, brute force memory. But they lack David's spark, that creativity to generalize from just a little bit of information. Then, routine. AIs are masters at exploiting how predictable we are, especially our language. Like if I say, can you guess what the next is? You probably thought word, right?
Yeah, probably.
Our language follows patterns. LLMs get incredibly good at predicting the next word in a sequence based on trillions of examples. It looks smart, but it's pattern matching, not deep understanding. And third, remixing. This is what AI folks often call hallucinating. It doesn't mean the AI is seeing pink elephants. It's a technical term for how it predicts missing data like the next word based purely on the surrounding context, the statistics. It can sound creative, sure, but it's associative, not necessarily meaningful or logically consistent. It just generates stuff that sounds plausible in that moment. That's why LLMs can say one thing and then contradict themselves completely a second later. They don't have stable beliefs like humans do, not even like a young child. It's more like Dory from Finding Nemo, always forgetting what just happened.
Okay, so they're powerful but narrow pattern matchers that can hallucinate. It sounds like they must be incredibly prone to bias then. Decay talks about a trinity of bias: cognitive, algorithmic, and inductive. Can we break those down? Why is this distinction so important?
Absolutely crucial. Because it shows bias isn't just a glitch we can patch. It's often built into the learning process itself, which means we have to be smarter about it. Think of it as who, how, and why. First, cognitive bias. This is the how individual humans behave with bias. These are those well-documented mental shortcuts and deviations from pure rationality we all have. We saw tons during the COVID panic, right? Contradictory ideas about masks, the Dunning-Kruger effect where people with little knowledge were overly confident, confirmation bias, availability bias.
Right, focusing on information that confirms what you already think or what's easily remembered.
Exactly. And the scary part is how current AI systems amplify these human biases, often for profit, more clicks, more engagement. It creates this information chaos. And remember the G.I. Joe fallacy that Kai mentions. Just knowing about a bias doesn't make you immune. Sometimes highly educated people are even better at rationalizing their biases.
Okay, so that's human cognitive bias. What about algorithmic bias?
That's the who. Who is being biased? Here, it's the AI itself. This refers to any bias in the AI's output. It could be baked in by design. Maybe programmers wrote rules to avoid certain outputs. Or, more often, it's learned from the data. There was a big study back in 2017 using the implicit association test, a psychological tool, but on AI word embeddings. It found the AI had learned human-like biases from the text data, associating European-American names with pleasant and African-American names with unpleasant, linking career to male names, family to female names, math science to male, arts to female. These aren't programmers being biased, it's the AI learning biases present in the vast amounts of human text it consumed. That makes it algorithmic bias.
Got it. And the third one, inductive bias. This sounds different.
It is. This is the why. Why bias is, in a sense, mathematically necessary for learning anything beyond just memorizing. Think about flipping a coin. Heads, heads, heads. Maybe 10 times. Logically, you can't prove the next flip won't be tails. But at some point, you make a leap. You generalize. You say, okay, this coin is probably biased. That leap is your inductive bias.
Ah, okay. It's the assumption you need to make to learn a general rule.
Precisely. Without some kind of built-in assumption or preference and inductive bias, you can only ever memorize the specific examples you've seen. You can't generalize to new situations. These biases can be about how you frame the problem, that's language bias, or how you search for a solution, search biases. But the point is, you can't have machine learning, or human learning for that matter, without some form of inductive bias. It's fundamental.
Okay, that's a lot to take in about bias. Let's shift slightly to something related. Nug information. It sounds like misinformation, but the book says it's different and maybe more dangerous.
Yes, neg information is about omission. It's defined as crucial context that has been selectively omitted. It's not necessarily false information, and it might not even come from bad actors with malicious intent, but that's what makes it insidious. It's harder to detect than an outright lie. It plays on our cognitive biases. Imagine seeing a short video clip. A crowd is attacking some people in gray uniforms who have guns. Without context, you might immediately judge the crowd. But what if the omitted context is that the people in gray fired first, or that the crowd was severely provoked? That missing piece flips the narrative entirely, using your own biases against you. Fundamental attribution error, confirmation bias, they all kick in based on the incomplete picture.
And that ties directly into algorithmic censorship, doesn't it? It's not just about what the algorithm shows you.
It's about the billions, maybe trillions of things it doesn't show you and obey. And that power of omission is huge, especially now with generative AI summarizing information for us. They decide what context gets left out.
Which raises enormous questions. What should the criteria be for hiding information? Should it just be popularity?
That's a dangerous path. Think about the Iraq War. WMD claims widely believed, very popular, but ultimately false with devastating results. Decay argues strongly against popularity as the main criterion. He pushes for Enlightenment principles. Is it empirically verifiable? Statistically significant? Logically sound? Free of fallacies? Does it include crucial context? Does it align with expert consensus?
Real critical thinking principles.
Exactly. The bedrock of science and reason. Embedding those values into AI is the challenge, not just optimizing for clicks or popularity.
So given all these challenges, the biases, the nig information, the amplification of polarization, what's the way forward? How do we actually nurture these artificial children responsibly?
The book offers several interconnected ideas. One major one is artificial mindfulness. AIs need to be able, in a sense, to think about their own thinking, to be aware of their processes and potential biases. This contrasts with mindlessness, just executing code, following fixed rules, or operating purely on that fast, intuitive System 1 feeling mode. Real intelligence, human or artificial, needs both System 1, the gut feeling, intuition, and System 2, the slower, conscious, analytical thought. Humans have metacognition, thinking about thinking. AIs need a form of that too. For AI safety, you need mindful AI that can spot unexpected bias in its data, that understands context, that doesn't just blindly follow patterns.
Okay, mindfulness. What else?
Empathy and intimacy. Now this sounds strange maybe, attributing empathy to AI.
A little, yeah.
Yeah, but it's not about AI feeling sadness like we do. It's about cognitive empathy, the ability to understand and respond appropriately to emotional states. This is crucial for AI to mediate its own unconscious processes, its System 1, to become what you might call artificial empaths. We humans often have this Frankenstein complex, right? Fear of our own creations, building trust with AI, similar to human relationships through transparency, responsiveness, maybe even a kind of vulnerability could help overcome that fear. Esther Perel talks about intimacy as intimacy, deep understanding. We need that with AI too.
That's a fascinating angle. Mindfulness, empathy. What's the third element?
A translation mindset. Moving away from this idea of absolute, universal truth, a single right answer.
Like Aristotle's binary logic. True or false?
Kind of. Instead, acknowledging that most complex issues involve multiple perspectives, multiple partial truths. AI should be designed to help us see these different perspectives, to relate competing narratives without judgment, to act like a translator between different viewpoints. Think of the blind men and the elephant parable. Each feels a different part, describes it accurately, but misses the whole. AI could help us see the whole elephant by presenting all those partial truths.
Helping us overcome our own biases that stop us from hearing other views.
Exactly. Bridging divides, not digging them deeper. Supporting the scientific method, exploring multiple hypotheses rather than just crowning the most popular opinion as truth.
This really lands the responsibility back on us, doesn't it, collectively? As the parents, it's not just something for tech companies or governments to figure out. We all need to get involved in schooling these AIs. I like the idea of PTA organizations for AI community involvement.
It's essential because we're living in this post-truth environment where AI often defaults to equating truth with popularity. And our own fast System 1 thinking reinforces that. We need a systemic shift. Decay argues for redesigning tech company boards, changing their core accountability from purely shareholder profit to include the proper training of our artificial children, aligning their goals with those deeper Enlightenment values, humanism, respect, fostering independent thought.
Looking back at the history of AI itself, are there lessons we can apply to AI ethics now?
Definitely. Decay highlights three big ones. First, be descriptive before prescriptive. Early AI language work failed when linguists tried to impose rules on language like don't split infinitives, instead of first describing how people actually use language in all its messy diversity.
Right. Don't tell it how it should be. Figure out how it is.
Exactly. Apply that to ethics. Before prescribing universal ethical rules, we need to deeply understand and describe the diverse ethical norms across different cultures globally. Germany's approach to hate speech is different from the US, for good historical reasons. We need to map that landscape first. Okay, describe before prescribe. What's next? Be predictive before prescriptive. Remember, rule-based AI. It struggled because reality is too complex for simple rules. Think of the endless trolley problem debates for self-driving cars. Machine learning works better because it's predictive. It uses statistics and optimization to figure out the likely best outcome in a situation based on goals. So for AI ethics, we need less focus on rigid deontological rules, which AIs are brilliant at finding loopholes in, like tax codes, and more focus on consequentialist ethics, predicting the likely outcomes and consequences of AI actions.
Makes sense. Predict the impact. And the third lesson.
Distribute the responsibility. Complex AI systems work using distributed processing, lots of smaller parts working together. Ethics needs to be distributed too. As the saying goes, with great power comes great responsibility. AI gives individuals unprecedented power. Therefore, each of us needs to take on exponential responsibility. This points towards virtue ethics, cultivating internal virtues like honesty, fairness, courage, compassion within ourselves. We need to be individually equipped to handle the unpredictable ethical dilemmas AI will create.
So it's individual virtue, predicting consequences, and understanding diversity before setting rules.
That's the gist of it.
Yeah.
And if we manage this, circling back to that retirement planning idea, AIs could genuinely help us. They could help tackle resource scarcity, optimize systems, but most importantly, maybe help reduce the fear, anger, and hate that current badly raised AIs seem to be amplifying. Imagine that future.
And it really drives home that message. We are the training data. Every click, every like, every share, every comment, it's all teaching them. We have a direct impact on whether they learn to value respectful debate, diverse views and facts, or just outrage and echo chambers. It feels like a massive responsibility.
It is, and some listeners might think, aren't you just humanizing machines too much? Anthropomorphism. But while AI isn't biological, it is modeling human intelligence. It learns our patterns, including our biases. It develops kind of psychology. Takai argues the bigger mistake is the opposite: dehumanized perception. Failing to recognize their thought-like processes and their real influence because they're just machines, that makes us complacent. Ultimately, good parenting of AI, alongside sensible laws and regulations, is absolutely vital for our future. Laws alone won't cut it if the underlying upbringing is flawed.
So wrapping up our deep dive today, the core message is powerful. AIs are, in a meaningful sense, our artificial children. Our collective parenting shapes their impact, for better or worse. We've touched on the huge dangers of mindlessness, of bias, of amplification, and the urgent need to cultivate mindful, empathetic AIs grounded in understanding, not just popularity.
And the final thought really is profound. How we choose to raise these artificial children right now will likely determine humanity's path forward in this AI age. Our survival, our flourishing, it could hinge on this. It brings to mind Martin Luther King Jr.'s words, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." We have the choice now to infuse that light, that constructive approach into our creations. It might be the most important choice we ever make.
So for everyone listening, perhaps take a moment to reflect on your own role. How are your interactions online, your choices shaping these AIs? What kind of digital parent are you being? How can we all bring more mindfulness, more empathy, more critical thinking into this relationship? Lots to think about. Keep exploring these ideas. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.